Hi everybody, Dan Illman, Mike Beer, beautiful Saratoga, getting ready for Belmont Stakes Saturday at the Spa. And race number 6 on the card is the Grade 2 Suburban. Like the Belmont, going to be run at 1.25 miles. This race, of course, is for older horses. We take a look at the field. It's not a big field. We do have 8 in here, however. Ben Doog is your 2-to-1 morning line favorite, coming in very sharp for Belmont.
It's been in good form. We're going to try to stretch him back out here to 1.25 miles and see what happens there. I think that's maybe the biggest issue regarding this horse as your morning line favorite. I remember when the Suburban used to be a really good race. That's not the case anymore, but I guess this is kind of an interesting betting race because the favorites aren't super strong.
It's a very good point. Those 2 horses, the morning line favorites, expected to be up close to the pace. Ben Doog was certainly up close last time out, and Charge It, the winner of last year's Suburban when it was held at Belmont Park, is another horse that I think is at his best when he's prominent in the early going. They tried that going a 1-turn mile off the layoff last time out. He was a fitness builder. Maybe he's better at this distance.
The longer distance you don't feel like is really going to affect him in this race, Dan. Obviously, he won the Suburban last year going 1.25 miles, so that's fine. The question is, first of all, I don't know what his best running style is. I don't think he has to be on the lead, but maybe he's better that way. He's just been a real disappointment overall for Todd Pletcher, and he's a really short price on the morning line.
A horse with a strong late kick in this race, if this pace gets fast, is Kopy. He would certainly benefit. I believe he has the fastest time form U.S. late pace rating. Let's start things off with Signator, because, you know, Signator has shown that ability, that he could be this kind of horse. He just hasn't really put it all together at the key moments. I love the way he won that second-level allowance at Aqueduct back in November, where he just cruised to the front on the outside and put the boots to that field in the stretch. The Queens County, he was wide. I was still a little disappointed with that effort. I was surprised they ran him a 1-turn mile in the Hooper, although you're beginning to think that maybe shorter is better.
Yeah, I'm starting to wonder that. I'm with you on the allowance win in November. He was pretty impressive that day, and that was a 9-furlong 2-turn race. So when they came back in the Queens County, didn't feel like it was a big issue, but the more I looked at that race and the move that he made into contention before he ultimately flattened out at the end, it made me wonder if he really wants to go that far. They came back off the little layoff last time. They went 9 furlongs again. He really didn't run that well, and I didn't see a huge excuse for him. And now they're going to stretch him out again to 1.25 miles. I wondered, and I'm a fan of this horse. I think he's good. I do think he's good enough to win this race. I wonder if the 1.25 miles gets in his way.
He finished 4th in his last race, a race that was won by the number 2 Kuchar. We're going to take a look at that race right now. And Kuchar's tactical speed is probably his greatest asset. It allows him to work out good trips like he did here in this high-level allowance race, and he's just going to get his nose down on the wire at the right time. He's in good form, having won 2 or 3 for a barn. Rudy Rodriguez has been going very well over the spring. Well, you would think on paper, just looking at it, Kuchar isn't truly a graded stakes horse. He's catching a field where maybe these favorites, these graded stakes favorites, they're kind of not that great on paper.
Yeah, no, this is the kind of race where I don't think you want to, it's hard to fall in love with the shorter prices. So that maybe opens this thing up here and gets you to take a second look at horses like Kuchar. Listen, it was only an allowance race last time. It was a pretty solid field. He ran pretty well in there. Pratt took over for that race, gave him a perfect trip. Another good trip coming here from post 2.
Mask Parade, the number 3, was a pretty good 3-year-old. He won the Ohio Derby, and then he ran 3rd right here on this track behind me in the Jim Dandy. Overall, a solid performance. He kind of lost his way as an older horse, Mike, but last time out, in the 2 starts back actually in the Temperance Hill, they stretched him all the way out to 1.5 miles, and he pulled off a big upset. Last time out, I'm not going to hold that race against him. He ran against the best dirt marathoner maybe in the world.
Yeah, he had no chance to beat that horse. He just got absolutely dusted through the stretch. He did run okay 2 starts back. The 1.25 miles, I feel like even though he wanted 1.5 miles, I feel like dropping back a couple of furlongs here probably helps this horse. Ultimately, Dan, I'm just not sure how good this horse actually is. He got good for about 5 minutes as a 3-year-old. He did nothing after that. Rob Atras has claimed this horse for a pretty big ticket, and he's gotten him good again. I couldn't talk myself into him.
Once in a while, the number 4 Charge It pops a big number. He's run 4 triple-digit Beyer speed figures in his career. It just hasn't happened at the most ideal times when the big money is on the line. Yes, he won the Suburban last year, and he won it very, very easily, and he looked good doing it, but he wasn't able to back it up in subsequent starts. His most recent race was his first start of the year. It was the Westchester. It was a 1-turn mile. He worked out a 3-wide prompting trip. He went after Messier on the turn, as we see, and he got a little bit tired against a good horse in post time, and we'll see in the Metropolitan Mile. I think stretching out works for him. I think that was a good fitness build for him.
I'll agree with all that stuff. Messier, who won the race, is pretty good. The runner-up is obviously very good. This horse had a license to need that race off the little bit of a layoff. The question, Dan, is how good is he? I mean, he was all potential early on. It felt like he had a real chance to be a top horse. I liked his Suburban last year as much as maybe any race he's ever run, but he just had all the best of it that day. I'm a little afraid that he's going to go right to the front here and he's going to have a mediocre field behind him and he's going to wire this field. But he's not that good, and he's going to be a really short price in here.
Can you make an argument that the 5, Time for Trouble, a nice horse, he's won 11 for 31 in his career, is actually getting a class drop off of his last 2 races, graded stakes? In the Essex handicap, he was in against First Mission, who's truly one of the top handicap horses in the country. He got a very nice ride from Rafael Bejarano that day. It looked like he wasn't going to get a piece. Bejarano dropped to the inside, and they were able to get up for 3rd. And last time out in the Banalai, they caught Kingsbarns, who, while not a star, came back to run a good second in the Pimlico Special with a 92 buyer. This is a horse that needs a little bit of pace, but I think he's a little underrated.
I think he's a little underrated too. The distance is really no concern for him. He'll get this far, I think, and he'll probably be a fair price in here. I didn't really want to knock him because his overall form is solid. I think those last 2 races kind of point out that he's not really a graded stakes kind of horse on the dirt, Dan. But listen, this is a Suburban that is not loaded with top horses. Maybe he fits.
Good skate goes out for a very good trainer in Michael Maker, and he's coming off a career best buyer performance when a well-beaten second behind Ben Doog last time out at Aqueduct going 9 furlongs. This distance isn't an issue. A wet track wouldn't be a problem for this horse. I just wonder if he's good enough.
Yeah, me too. I mean, that's the fair thing to wonder about him. Very consistent, very tactical. He can get a good trip in this race and maybe be in the right position when this field comes into the top of the stretch. Then the question is he good enough to even be horses like this? He'll be a good price.
We saw Kopy debut here back in 2022. He happened to catch Disarm in his career debut. There was a lot of buzz surrounding this horse, and when we got a look at him, we saw he's big. He may need to grow into himself. He may need more distance, and I think that's all proven true. Towards the end of his 3-year-old campaign, they got him out to 1 1/8. He seemed to find himself. I thought all in all in the Pegasus World Cup over that track, which could be speed friendly, he ran very well to be 3rd. I'm not going to hold the Dubai World Cup against him. You could make an argument that this is the horse with a future.
Yeah, I kind of look at him that way too, especially just the way he was going at the end of last year. It just felt like he was finally starting to put everything together. He got 2 stakes wins around 2 turns at Aqueduct at the end of the year last year. I thought he ran really well in both of those races. Listen, Pegasus World Cup was a tough spot for him anyway. You're right that that's not the kind of track you want to be closing in on at Gulfstream Park, but he did have a huge pace in front of him. But he ran, Dan. I mean, I feel like if he just takes one small step forward, he's right there in this race.
And Ben Doog is in fine form, which is why he's the morning line favorite in here. He was 6th in the Dubai World Cup in 2023. He was transferred to Bilmad, who gave him plenty of time, and he's won his last 2, including this most recent race, a second-level allowance where he beat Good Skate, who finished 2nd and then was disqualified. He just was able to relax very nicely on the lead. He put his pace challenger away, and he went about his business. Visually, there was nothing wrong with it, and he got a fig.
Liked the ride that he got that day. They just sort of went to the front. He was drawn towards the inside. He took control of that race, and he never gave that field a chance. Really good. He was also really good at the 1-turn mile 2 starts back when he came from off the pace. Big wide move. Buried that field at the end. He only won it by a head, but he was much the best in there, Dan. I think the big question is, I mean, you can go back, and maybe he's just a different horse now. Those races in Dubai early last year, going the 1.25 miles, felt like he didn't really want to go that far, and he came up short in all of those races. So I'm worried about the 1.25 miles at a short price.
Well, let's take a look at our top picks in here. I don't have an issue with Kopy going the 1.25 miles, and he could get a fair pace to attack. I don't think he needs a blazing pace. He just needs to be within range if it's fair.
That's how I looked at it, too. I mean, he's not going to be up close in here, so the trip is going to be very important to him. He's got to be in range when this field comes off the quarter pole. I think he can go with these horses. He's really the only one. I didn't like the long shots in here, Dan, so it got me down to the 3 favorites in here. He's the only one of those 3 that I could take a chance with.
Charge it to me. I think he needs to run back to one of his big races. If he does, he can win. The problem is he's very inconsistent, so you have to demand a price. To me, he has to be the 3rd choice in this field. I'm not sure if that's going to be the case. But your point about Ben Doog maybe not getting the 1.25 miles, you have to be aggressive with Charge It. Make the lead.
I agree.
Make that horse chase you. Make them all run you down. Second off the layoff, I think he'll be tighter for Todd. I'll go Charge It. Mike's going Kopy. We're going Pletcher in the Suburban. Good luck.